You're listening to the Cricket Podcast.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Cricket Podcast, where we're here to talk about the first day of the fourth test between England and India. It was a day that meandered along, but had a few critical moments, which I'm sure we'll get to, not least the foot injury to Rishabh Pant. I'm Jack Hope. I'm joined by Max Rowe-Brown. How are you doing, Max?
Hello, I'm very well, thank you. Yeah, meandered is the word that immediately sprung to my mind as well as you were introing that. So already in agreement, but yeah, looking forward to getting into it.
Yeah, before we get going, just a reminder to everybody to click like and subscribe if you're watching on YouTube or listening on Apple or Spotify. Leave us a review if you can, if you have 2 minutes to do that. I think on Spotify, you literally just click 5 stars. You don't even have to write. You just click a star-shaped thing and then click 5, and we'll be really happy. And tell all your friends. It's a good series. It's set up pretty well after day one. I'm sure there'll be loads of stuff to talk about as we progress through the test. So make sure you hang about with us and do that. Max, we've got 20 minutes. We have to trim down the show. Last time we talked on Monday, we did an hour and 10. So we're going to have to get rid of 50 minutes of prime content today. Can you summarize what happened on day one?
I can indeed. And no sooner, Jack, than Matt Roller had said, no team won the toss and elected to bowl. So we'll see if he can break that particular hoodoo. And as India were put in, there was a bit of life in the pitch. The ball moved around a bit. There was a bit of nip. There was a bit of swing. But India saw it through to lunch, half with skill, perhaps, half with a little bit of luck, depending on who you ask. But nevertheless, there were no wickets down at lunch and looking good. England came back in the second session. Dawson managed to pick up a wicket, making Jack nervy about penning his apology note early on in the day. And KL Rahul nicked off as England bit back. And then India settled things down, and it looked like being a really good day for India until that fateful moment that you presaged, Jack, where Rishabh Pant tried to reverse sweep Chris Wokes, which was a bold choice of shot, and in the end, inside edged it onto his foot and went off with what looked like a very, very sore foot. That is being scanned. We await the results of that, but it looked for all the money based on the anguished facial expressions that he was pulling and the amount of swelling in the area that a fracture would not be unexpected. So that could be big for India, and we'll get into that. And fortunately for them, despite the interesting move of promoting Shardul Thakur who was into the side instead of NKR, up to 7, they made it through to the end of the day, also with a little bit of help from some technology and a light meter, which meant that England were not able to take the new ball with their seamers. And the day sort of petered out in the end, which is a shame, because I think we were robbed in that last half an hour of what could have been a really big passage of play for the day and the match as a whole, really. If India had managed to see that off, I think they'd have been in a position where they'd be feeling very happy. Likewise, if England had managed to take a couple of wickets at the end, they've been well on top, I think, from the day's play. But as it is, we were left wanting a little more, and we'll have to come back tomorrow to see what happens.
Yeah, I think the in the end, it was basically 20 bonus runs to India. I can kind of see why England bowled the extra 3 overs and maybe not 20, maybe 15 bonus runs to India. I can see why England did do it, like hoping that the weather might improve or whatever. But I think the 2 Indian guys have been pretty happy that they got 3 overs of Dawson and Root bowling with a very old ball on a flat surface. Like it would have been pretty difficult, pretty stupid to get out there. I think overall, Max, let's start with this. Who won today? I'm going to say India have marginally edged today's proceedings. Like, I don't think that... It's a bit like we were talking about this in the preview, weren't we, about the concept of the beatdown session. I think if you look at today's play, session 1, India have marginally won. They haven't scored very many runs, but they haven't lost a wicket, and it was probably the best time to bowl. The afternoon, I think, probably England win. What were India in the afternoon? 70-3, something like that. I think that's a fairly clear, or a marginal win for England, maybe. And then after tea, I think India win again, even with the Rishabh Pant injury. That's my thoughts. Where do you think things were?
Yeah, I agree in the sense I do think India probably end it just on top. They didn't score. They probably would have liked another 20 or 30 runs on top, I think, to be 4 down at the end of the day. They went a bit slowly, so their game has by no means got away from England or India. I don't think have taken much of a step forward as they could have, but that does depend on Rishabh Pant. I mean, if he can't come back and they are 5 down, then it's, I think, a much more even day than it was, and England will be pretty confident of wrapping it up tomorrow without too much further damage. But yeah, I think it's probably a case where India are ahead, but I actually think both teams will be reasonably happy with how it went. I think England will probably come out with a lot of bravado, being like, "Oh no, that's a good day for us. That's exactly what we wanted."
It's not a bad day.
Yeah,
it's definitely not a bad day. And like, if you look at it cynically and you factor in the Rishabh Pant injury, that could be 2 wickets. Like,
yes, that is true.
It might turn out to be 0 wickets. Like that is a possibility as well. But it could be 2 wickets.
It could be 36 buys.
If you said after day one the other team are 260 for 5 on a pretty flat deck, and in the second innings their second best batter or third best batter, one of their best batters, can't bat, you're probably taking that deal. Or you're probably, there are far worse outcomes that could have come to pass. So I think it is. Well, it is exactly what it looks like. +1 wicket, 265 for 5. No one is like dancing in the streets, and no one is majorly upset. Max, performances wise, who are you happy with? Who do you thought did well?
KL Rahul again. I think he'll be pretty annoyed at getting out when he did, because he looked good in that first session. I think I mentioned that there was some skill and some luck involved. I mean, Jaiswal was after the opening pair were done, I think he was there on about 13 or 40 balls with a control percentage of 70, and I think there were enough plays and misses there that England would have expected to get him out. On the other hand, I think KL Rahul negotiated the conditions very well and the bowling very well. I think England bowled reasonably well in the first hour. Probably unlucky not to take a wicket, but it was Jaiswal that got the luck, and I thought Kinglanger batted nicely. I thought all of England's bowlers did a half decent job. Ben Stokes, obviously, and we obviously have to talk about Liam Dawson as well, because he's the new guy, and I thought he was accurate. It's a first day. There was a little bit in it, but not a lot. He got the wicket at Jaiswal, which was important after lunch, and I was impressed with the control he had. The lines, the lengths, it was very consistent. He looked like he knew where he was putting the ball, which, let's face it, isn't always the case with England spinners. So yeah, I thought I don't know if there was necessarily a huge standout on the England side, and again on the India side, like, they'll probably be disappointed that they didn't go further with the basically 350s that they had, right? Siddharthan in particular got into a really good position and then played a really awful shot. So yeah, no standouts, I think, which kind of is fitting of the day. The day is as a whole, really, wasn't it? Maybe Chris Wokes gets MVP for breaking Rishabh Pant's foot.
Look, Wokes gets Rahul. That's a good wicket. The Rishabh Pant thing, that will either turn out to be massive or like irrelevant. I think that's it's pretty binary, that situation. So arguably, what Wokes, people will be raving about Ben Stokes, and probably rightly so. And I think his ball to get Shubman Gill was
excellent,
decent, very decent. Shubman Gill played it really badly, but yeah, we do know
reviewed it even worse.
That was a terrible review. Yeah, we do know that Shubman Gill does have a weakness when the ball comes back into him. Like, that is a known thing in Test cricket, and the reason for that is he isn't absolutely sure where off stump is, and there's no greater evidence of that, I don't think, than kicking a ball that didn't even actually move that extravagantly, just off stump. but you still look. He's batted really well in the series. And you still have to get the ball in that area, and when you don't get the ball in that area, he will absolutely feast. So you have to say well done to Stokes for that. I kind of agree on the Siddharthan point. I think he's top scored for India, but that I think is probably an opportunity missed from his point of view, and I think as well. To me, it's a little bit confusing getting out like that, and I don't know. I don't know whether this is really a comment about Sai Siddharthan's decision making or whether it's a comment about India's decision making. But I can see India's game plan, right? Like from the sidelines, it's pretty clear what they think they need to do to win. They need to play mistake-free cricket. They don't really need to push the game along. They just sort of need to grind England down,
letting
put
them
overs
beat
in the
themselves.
legs. Yeah, and like the quality of their batting means that if they do play defensively, probably they're going to end up getting 450. It'll take them quite a long time. England will then sort of be forced into trying to play quickly because they want to win, and that creates mistakes, that creates opportunities, and that's the route to victory they have chosen.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is if you get out kicking the ball off stump, or I don't even really know what the shot was from Siddharthan. It was like a nothing.
It was like a hip high pull shot, wasn't it? The top edge.
Yeah, it was. It didn't. I like it was like a big mistake basically. If you're playing at 3 and over, and you make those mistakes, you really undermine your whole game plan. Like what you're doing by batting like this is saying to the other team, we don't think that your bowlers are good enough to actually get us out. So we're just going to sort of be here, and gradually that score will go up and up and up as we accumulate, even if it is pretty slowly. And that's our trump card. If you throw away 2 wickets, then you can quite quickly end up in a little bit of trouble. Now, 264 for 4, it's not the end of the world. The morning tomorrow will probably determine whether we look back on this and say, well batted India, or whether we look back on this and we say,
should have been a bit more aggressive.
Those mistakes were criminal. But it's a really clear tactic that India have adopted probably from the second test onwards to be maybe a little bit less expansive, take a little bit more time out of the game, and effectively play slightly more boring cricket, basically. But I'm not saying that from a tactically critical point of view. I'm saying it from
just an observation,
a tactically interesting point of view. That they have decided to play a different type of cricket, because I don't think this pitch overall, particularly after lunch, was a 3 and over pitch. I don't know if you agree or disagree with any of that.
It looked like a decent wicket. I mean, it was it had a bit of bounce in it. It looked reasonably flat. There was enough in it to start with for the bowlers. So I think 3 and over for the first 20 overs or so. Yeah, perfectly reasonable, right? Try and see off the trickiest bit. And there were elements where it was tricky and England bowled well. And once you've done that, you've then earned the right to try and kick on and accumulate the runs. And that never happened. And yeah, I do think that there was an opportunity for them to do that if they wanted to. I think Rishabh Pant showed that while he was at the crease. He batted like Rishabh Pant does, and he batted a lot quicker than everyone else and looked perfectly comfortable doing that. And maybe you could argue that injury is, part of the issue for India. Maybe everyone is batting around Rishabh Pant, and he's the one who kicks on and gets them the extra runs. It's wouldn't be a weird strategy, because he's the kind of guy you just let him do what he wants to do because he is good enough, especially in the red ball game. But yeah, no, I think it's a fair point that you make. I think it is an interesting observation. I do wonder whether it's a deliberate tactic. I think it would make sense, wouldn't it? Like the way England go about the game, the way you set it out, that doesn't feel like an illogical way forward. It's not very exciting or interesting, but that's not what it's about, really, is it? When you're going away from home in a red ball series, the aim is to put up a good show and try and win. And if India think that's the best way to do it, then fair play. And they've, mostly done a pretty good job of that so far. But it'll be, I think, like you say, tomorrow will be interesting. And if England do take a couple of early wickets, I think as much as those 2 mistakes and those wickets they gave away being, brought to the fore a bit more, I think the approach in general will probably be under question as well, because you think, from the position they were in of 212 for for 3 before Rishabh Pant got injured. Like you'd want more. You want more of a lead out of a day than that when you've got another 20, 30 overs of an old ball to play with.
Yeah, I don't actually. I mean, like just to be really clear, I don't think it's an illogical thing for India to do. I just think that they haven't done a very good job of it here, and part of that is Rishabh Pant's injury. If this is a genuine 264 for 4 and Pant and Jadeja are in, then I think that they have done well. But with that, then it makes it a little bit more dicey. I mean, to be honest, even when Shardul Thakur came in, he looked pretty untroubled. Like it didn't look like it was very difficult for him to bat, and despite what the big fans of the Lord will tell you, he's not that good. Like him getting to I know that it's an old ball and it's sort of interesting circumstances, but you still got to score the runs, and he did it pretty easily. So yeah, we'll see how things develop. I haven't got much to say on Dawson. I still don't think he'll take 4 wickets in the match. I think he was about what I expected from him. Nice of him to pick up a wicket, obviously, but it's probably a little bit more of a control spinner option than Shoaib Bashir. Maybe even a better bowler than Shoaib Bashir. But I didn't see anything, Max, and maybe you saw it differently, that suggests that like this is the missing spinner that England really need, and that he's going to have finish. He's going to take a stack of wickets in the next. He's going to go to the Ashes and take 25 wickets.
Well, I mean, I think it would be hard to make that call until we've had 4 or 5 days of cricket. Because let's remember, like he's bowled 15 overs on day 1 of a Test match on a pretty decent wicket, right? And I thought he did that pretty well. He kept the economy rate down. He, went for a couple of boundaries towards the end when England were trying a bit of funky stuff and bringing people up. But generally speaking, I thought he bowled really nicely and accurately, very controlled. Got probably a bonus wicket, if anything, if Jaiswal early on, and I think he'll be happy with his day's work. Yeah, he's not come in and like rip through everyone, but it would be pretty weird to expect that on day 1 in England. So I'm gonna hold off on that one until he gets a chance in the second innings, because I think if spin comes into it a bit more and he bowls like that, then he would cause problems for a lot of English batters. Whether he causes those problems for Indian batters is a different question. But I was happy enough with what I saw. In particular, the fact that he managed to tie up an end. You could say that was down to the way India played, sure, but Rishabh Pant didn't go after him especially, and he, I thought he did well.
Last couple of questions from the chat, then we'll wrap up. Firstly, was India do random stuff for no reason? Why did the Lord come in ahead of Washington Sundar? I can only assume that's a lefty-righty thing.
Yeah,
like, there's no reason that you would promote Shardul Thakur is okay. Like he's like an 8.5, maybe an 8 in like terms of where you want him in your batting order. Like I got, you can bat a bit basically. Like 7 is high, very high for Shardul Thakur. I don't know what's going on there. And I think India's selection in general is kind of a little bit weird with what we were trying to work this out.
Yeah,
they
went with
11. Sundar, Shardul Thakur, Kamboj, Bumrah, and Siraj. We were like trying to fit 4 of those 5 into the bottom, into 8 to 11, and we talked about this a lot on the preview pod. We didn't think. Well, I mean, like we had this kind of wild card that they might put Washington Sundar at 3 or something like that. I think what they've come up with, I do think is odd, and I think batting Shardul Thakur at 7, even though it's sort of worked, is also slightly odd too. And it does make you think that maybe Gautam Gambhir doesn't really know like what his priorities should be. But they've done all right. They might win. Like it's not. They're quite. You can make bad decisions if you're India or England, to be honest, and you can pick players that probably aren't up to the job. And the strength of the good players can still bring the team through. So I'm not saying that like it's he's picked a losing team here. It's just a team that
not the one we expected.
Yeah, it doesn't really make sense. I mean, like What's Washington Sundar like? One of Washington Sundar and Shardul Thakur probably isn't going to bowl that much in this test, and neither of them, I would say, are as good as Karen Nair at batting. So,
Yeah.
like,
it's like Dan Weston's old luxury players in T20, isn't it? It's like you maybe you could afford one of them, but I think having two is a bit much. And basically like pick someone who's good at their thing, not a guy who can do a little bits and pieces. But like you say, no reason it might not turn out to work and they might win, but it does seem a little strange.
It's possible. And then Rhubarb asks, what's par for this match? I think 400 is
I agree.
What you would want. Possibly even above 400. I would say this though. There's a little bit of a caveat in there and we talked about this in the podcast as well, that the weather is going to be a factor in this match. You're going to have spells in the game, the odd hour here and there where it's going to be really, really hard to bat. And so if you end up in a situation with a new batter in that scenario, you could lose a stack of wickets and it's not really your fault. It's just that par for that part of the game suddenly swung wildly in favor of the bowling side. But if we saw like a repeat of today for 5 days, which obviously we're not going to get because that's not how weather works, then I would think 400 is what you'd want.
Or if it does look like it's about to get tricky, just go and tell the umpires that you can't see, and then you can all go home.
It's a perfectly reasonable thing to do. Look, we're going to wrap up there. That's 20 minutes. I think we're back tomorrow. We'll see you then. Goodbye.
Goodbye.